to Before You Go, the official podcast of ABODE Contemplative Care for the Dying.
At ABODE, our vision is that we live in a world where death is not feared and we live fully until we die. And we'd like to make that happen before we go. I'm Mary Thorsby, ABODE's CEO.
I'm Natalie Buster, ABODE's end-of-life doula and yoga director. Welcome to Before You Go. Mary, how are you?
I'm excellent, Natalie. How are you today?
I'm so excited because today is our very first podcast day.
Yes, it's the grand opening of the podcast.
It certainly is. It's something that we've been talking about for a while. How do we get the message out about death positivity and being comfortable with our own mortality? And I say this is a pretty good way.
Not bad. Let's give it a go.
Give it a go. So, hi, everybody. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Mary Thorsby.
We wanted to start this podcast and every podcast with a contemplative moment. The contemplative moments and contemplative practices are a cornerstone of what we do at ABODE. And so we wanted to introduce that concept to all of you. So don't do this if you're driving. You can just listen. But if you are home listening to us, watching us, you're invited to find a comfortable seat. If your ankles are crossed, if your knees are crossed, go ahead and uncross them. Just feel yourself, your feet grounded into the floor. Feel your seat grounded into the support beneath you. If you'd like, you can bring one hand to your heart and one hand to your abdomen. And again, don't do this if you're driving, but go ahead and close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. And take a moment to notice your breath. Notice the beating of your heart. Notice how your body responds to your breath. And then bringing your attention to the tip of your nose, notice the temperature of your breath. Is it cool or warm? And does that temperature change from inhale to exhale? And then from this point of contemplation, of focus and relaxation, you are invited to set an intention for your day. We call that our sankalpa or resolve, but it's like a positive statement in the present tense. An I am statement. I am is a complete sentence, but if you want to add a word to it at the end, making that your personal mantra for the day, feel free to do so. And once you have it, repeat it to yourself 3 times. Let your hands come back to your lap and open your eyes. Take in the room a little bit at a time, noticing textures, colors, patterns, light. We welcome you to Before You Go, the official podcast of ABODE Contemplative Care for the Dying. We're excited to talk about all things death and dying and contemplative moments as well.
Absolutely. It's what we talk about all day long.
All day long. Yeah. Well, Mary, you were one of the first people I met at ABODE, and I immediately fell in love with you. But I am curious why you decided to start this work, why you wanted to first be the executive director and now CEO. What keeps you coming in every day?
Yeah, well, let's see. I came to San Antonio from San Francisco, actually. My mother had been living here for quite a long time, and it was clear she couldn't live on her own for much longer. So I figured she'd taken care of me for my first 18 years of life. I felt called to come and take care of her for the end of her life. And while I was doing that, I learned about ABODE. I did not start it. It was started by a lovely couple, Edwin and Patsy Sasick. And the home is located on Post Oak Lane And we take care of three people at a time in 3 bedrooms who are on hospice and who are at the end of life. And we do this at no charge. We run completely on donations and grants. I learned about ABODE, and I thought if my mom ever needed to go somewhere, this would be a lovely place for her. But I was able to take care of her in her own home. And it was just a very special opportunity to do that. In the meantime, I learned that ABODE was looking for an executive director, so I applied for the job and I got it. So I used to say I was kind of running the little abode at mom's house, and then I would come to Post Oak Lane and run the big abode. And it has absolutely been just a life-changing experience. I really had no experience in death and dying until I came to take care of my mother, and then until I started doing some things with ABODE. And I just thought, what an interesting field. It's one that is it's so needed and it's so beautiful, and yet it's not talked about a lot. So what keeps me coming to ABODE is the opportunity to be of service to others at a time when they need it most. We often celebrate pregnancies and births. I feel that the end of life is deserving of just as much love, dignity, respect, and celebration. And how about you? How did we snag you into our world?
Oh my gosh. Well, Mary, that was so beautifully put. And I think that's exactly it, right? Abode is such an amazing place. But beyond that is just this embracing of the inevitable, right? Like we're all going to die and we don't like to talk about it. But somehow you and I ended up here and at Abode doing this podcast. And I would say what brought me here. So as a child, I was a strange child. I was really into memento mori without knowing what that was. So for those of you listeners who don't know, memento mori is either an artistic depiction, or maybe it's in literature, or it's in some art form, music, theater, which reminds us of our upcoming death. It reminds us that we're mortal. It reminds us that we all will die someday. And I was a little weird with my friends. I was really into listening to requiems. I was really into the Fauré Requiem, the Mozart Requiem, the Verdi Requiem. And my best friend Anne in high school would always say, "Oh, Natalie, gosh, how do you meet men? You say, hey, do you want to come over and listen to my Requiem collection?" Like yeah, that was me. So fast forward, pandemic 2020, I'm getting my yoga therapy certification. And at the same time, my mom is dying. And it was challenging as the pandemic was challenging for a lot of us because I couldn't be with her as much as I'd like to be. I saw that the times that I was able to be with her, I was just spending time with her, holding space, helping her do little movements of her joints and talking to her and helping her feel more comfortable, holding space, being present. And for this yoga therapy certification that I was doing online, they had 2 modules offered at the same time. One was bedside yoga, where you bring yoga to people bedside at the end of life. And then one about yoga for grief. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is perfect for me, because by the time these modules were offered, my mom had died. And I was so grateful that I got a chance to spend some of those final times with her. I wish I could have spent more time. So I wanted to learn about it. Like, how can I serve more people in the way that I serve my mom? And one of the requirements for this bedside yoga certification was to find a hospice organization or a place that takes care of people at the end of life. I reached out to my friend Siobhan, who knew Mary and was a volunteer at ABODE, put us in touch, and the rest is history. And I've been there for about 2.5 years. We've been doing a lot of bedside yoga for people that we care for. And we've also been running our award-winning doula certification, end-of-life doula certification, We have our Abode at Home doula dispatch service, which we'll get into in future episodes. And we just started our end of life yoga certification. So it's full circle from that perspective.
It is so exciting, Natalie. I mean, from the moment you walked through our door, everything was already fabulous. It was fabulous times 1,000.
Oh my gosh.
I love that you came with a yoga background. I just started yoga really when I started to take care of mom. And it's a beautiful practice. And I remember telling some of us the other day that when I started doing yoga, I kept it very separate from what I do at Abode. I had my Abode life and my yoga life. And one of our instructors, Beryl Bender, said, yoga is all about being in the present. I thought, oh my gosh, well, that's what Abode is all about with our contemplative approach to care. We will refer to that as being very in the present. And I thought, okay, well, now I can't keep them separate. They're all in one. Next thing I knew, here was Natalie.
Oh my gosh. Well, and Siobhan had said, you're going to meet Mary Thorsby and you're going to fall in love with her. You're going to be her best friend. And here we are doing a podcast. I think what's interesting too is when I first walked into Abode, I was struck by the atmosphere of this home. And I know you didn't create the atmosphere to begin with, but you definitely have helped contribute to how it feels when we walk in. And, we can explain Abode and we can talk about our mission, our vision, and values, which we will. But it really is a feeling. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. You walk through the doors and you feel you just feel better. There's a sense of peace and love. And I credit that with Edwin and Patsy, our founders, and other early supporters. When Abode was being built, the home was built from the ground up. Folks wrote blessings and wishes and prayers in different languages, in different religions, and they tacked them inside the walls as the walls were coming up. So if you come in and you feel something, and most everybody does, I think that's why. And we also want people to feel welcomed, valued, and celebrated when they come to Abode. And I often say that for a place where people come to die, it sure is full of life.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there are so many wonderful outreach and educational offerings that we have. Like if you come in on a Thursday, let's say, you're going to walk in, you're going to see our beautiful volunteer, Ed Alderete, a 90-year-old gentleman whose wife, I think, was the third guest at Abode.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and he's been volunteering with us ever since. He's leading a meditation on Thursdays. That's followed by a lively lunch where everyone gets together and kind of talks about what's going on in their lives. We have visitors, we have family members, friends who come to visit the guests whom we serve. There's bedside yoga. There has been sound healing. There's a drum circle that we have once a month. We have the Death Cafe where people come and talk about death.
Abode Academy. We hold Abode Academy once or twice a year, which is on Zoom, and we pick out different end-of-life topics. The one earlier this year was all about dementia. And I mean, it broke all records for attendance because dementia is such a fascinating and difficult field. And we had wonderful speakers for that. If you go to abodehome.org and look under our education tab, it goes on and on with all the wonderful offerings that we have for the community and for anyone.
Yeah. I feel sad that not everyone who listens or watches us on this podcast will have the opportunity to actually come into Abode. Of course, if you're in the San Antonio area, you are more than welcome. You can also make a special trip. But you can also visit our website and just get immersed in all things Abode. There's so much goodness that we have on our website.
There is also on our Facebook and our Instagram. So have a look, and our growing YouTube channel.
Yes, exactly. Which we are we are feeding and watering now with this podcast. Yeah. Well, speaking of inviting people to do special trips to come see us, we have a huge celebration that's occurring this September. Mary, I have to tell you, I was fangirling out.
I know you were. You and me.
We got to meet, and we will also get to meet in person, the author of Briefly Perfectly Human, Alua Arthur. She's a celebrity death doula. Um, she's just amazing. And she's coming to San Antonio.
She is a goddess. She found her own calling in the end of life field and became a death doula. She lives in Los Angeles. She is sparkly and entertaining and beautiful, and her heart is just huge. And I can't remember if I knew about her first or watched her amazing TED talk, but I just thought, wow, this she's speaking our language. And she has an end of life doula certification program, which I've participated in, and several of our staff members have as well. And so now we're getting her to come to our program and help Abode celebrate our 10 years. We opened our doors in December 2014, which was before my time, but the early founders had just a wonderful group of supporters who've continued to support Abode. So we're going to gather on Saturday, September 21st, for an evening with Alua Arthur celebrating Abode's 10-year anniversary. And it is open to the public. You have to have a ticket, though. So purchase your ticket at abodehome.org by making a $60 donation.
And the wonderful thing about that is, yes, it's a ticket to see this amazing, eloquent speaker, but it's also an opportunity to help support the work that we do because each ticket sale is a donation.
Exactly. It's a tax deductible donation.
Yeah. Yeah, because like you said earlier, Abode runs completely on donations and grants. And so there's overhead costs. You pay the navigators. We call the caregivers navigators at Abode, and we're staffed 24/7. So we've got bills to pay, we've got people to pay, and love and caregiving to share. And so every donation, and if you can't make it, if people can't make it to this event, they could still donate.
We absolutely will, and you can donate as much as you want. There's no limit. There's no limit. You're you're right, Natalie. We run a home, so imagine what it costs to run your own home. And we provide our service absolutely free of charge for anyone who comes to Abode. We're the only place in San Antonio where you can receive free end of life care. And we're just one of, I think, 3 or 4 now in the entire state of Texas. So for a family to have a loved one come to Abode, it's such a blessing. I just, the fact that people have to spend so much money for their end of life care, to me, is so sad and unfair. So I love the fact that we can take care of people and it not affect their pocketbook.
I see that it really allows us to reach underserved populations as well. And I think that's important too because everybody deserves to die with dignity and respect. And this allows us to reach people who may not have the means otherwise.
Very true. We often have guests who do have family and they come and see them regularly and daily, and some barely leave their side. And we have other folks who have absolutely no one. And in fact, we take care of folks who are housing challenged. So for those folks, we become their family. I mean, what a gift for all of us to be able to do that for one another.
Absolutely. And I think that's what I had hoped to find. When I was taking care of my mom or spending time with her, my dad was her chief caregiver, but I was able to help offset a little bit of his energetic bank account with my presence. And I would love this for everybody to have just someone who can be with them. We don't even have to do much. I remember, and this continues to touch me. And I mentioned this during our yoga training this weekend, but I went to ABODE. I was just new to ABODE, and I was offering the bedside yoga, but nobody from the community had shown up, and all of the guests were sleeping. And I had said to you, Mary, what do I do? What can I do? I don't know what to do with my time here. And you said, your presence is enough. And that just made such an impact on me. It just touched me so deeply.
Well, that's something I learned since working at ABODE. Peg Armstrong, she's on our board, she's also a goddess, shares this quote: we spend a lot of time as human doings, feeling like we have to be doing all the time. We need to spend more time being human beings. Just be, just bring your good energy and your spirit. And if you go into a guest room and sit next to them while they're sleeping or while they're going through their process of dying, just having another presence in the room, it makes a difference. So having a group of volunteers for whom this tugs at their heartstrings, it helps our end of life navigators, our staff, it helps all of us. But then we ourselves get so much in return from providing that service for someone. It's just a very special place where you can spend your time and your efforts doing just about anything, and it all adds up to a beautiful experience for everyone.
Gosh, that's so true. I love our mission, the mission of ABODE. We teach the art of contemplative living and dying. So living and dying while providing a beautiful home and compassionate care for those at the end of life. So I love that it's an art, the art of contemplative living and dying. And I feel that when you do contemplate your own death, the memento mori, you're reminded of your mortality. I don't know. I think there's a chance that you might live your life a little fuller. You might take that trip. You might do the things. You might say, I love you to the people that you need to. You don't want to take any moment for granted.
I agree with you 100%. And especially seeing folks who lived a full life and then there they are at the very end of it. And now, as I'm aging, I realize we have such limited time here working at ABODE and following our mission and our vision, where we believe that death is not to be feared and we live as fully as we can. That has completely changed how I live. I really do get up every morning doing my best to make sure I've done something that's made this day worthwhile, either for me or for someone else. But we've got a lot to do before we go, and I always like to make sure I get at least some of it done every day, because this is it. We won't have another opportunity, or at least not one I know of.
Yeah, we don't know. So we might as well make the most of what we have.
We named our podcast Before You Go because we know we've got a lot of doing to get done before we're out of here. And Natalie, before I go, I will do all of the necessary planning for the next stretch of my life so that I know who's going to take care of me and where I'm going to be. And I'm going to make all those plans in advance so that it's not something that we all have to worry about when, frankly, it's too late to make any other plans. How about you?
Oh, that's good. Ditto. But also, before I go, I want to make sure that everyone in my life that I care about knows I care about them. And so I'm going to, I almost said need to or should, but I'm going to make a list of friends, reach out to them, schedule phone calls, check in with people, just so that they know how important they are to me.
Oh, that's so lovely.
I know. I don't think we can get through a conversation without tearing up.
I cry every day, multiple times a day. So we have a question for our listeners now. And the question for you all is, what do you want to do before you go? What do you need to do before you go? As we mentioned, we're all here so temporarily, so now's the time. So leave us a comment and let us know. We're interested.
Thank you for tuning in to our very first episode of Before You Go, the official podcast of ABODE Contemplative Care for the Dying. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Before You Go, the official podcast of ABODE Contemplative Care for the Dying.
At ABODE, we believe that death is not a medical event. It's a very natural event. So therefore, we are not offering medical advice. We're simply sharing our experiences and knowledge with you before you go.
Make sure to visit us online at abodehome.org, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and while you're there, click that donate button to help us along. This podcast was edited by Make Your Day Richer.